Speaker.
I call the member for Buderim.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. This is a budget for the next 4 months rather than a budget for the next 4 years. This is a budget that is all about getting a decade-old Miles Palaszczuk Labor government re-elected rather than tackling the chronic issues that Queenslanders are facing in health, housing and crime.
Order, members.
On the Sunshine Coast and right across Queensland. This is a budget that shows Labor will do and will say anything that they need to just so that they can cling to power. Deputy Speaker, this budget fails the Sunshine Coast. This Labor budget fails the Sunny Coast because there's no money to start construction on Sunshine Coast heavy passenger rail. This Labor budget fails the Sunshine Coast because there's nothing of substance to get work started on the Malula River.
Members to my right.
I can hear the Minister for Transport.
Member for Buderim, you have the call.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I can hear the Minister for Transport there chirping away. The Minister for Transport who cut the Malula River interchange. He will say that there is funding in this budget for the Malula River interchange, stage one. A stage that he said would cost $771 million. So how much extra, is there $771 million in this budget for stage one? No, not an extra cent. There's $10 million. $10 million to do a bit more planning. $10 million to talk about it and consider it, but no money to start work. That says everything about this Labor government. The budget papers, Deputy Speaker, even say
to my right.
The budget papers even say that for Sunshine Coast heavy passenger rail and for the Malula River interchange, that I quote, the scope and timing of those projects are in doubt, and that they are, quote, under further consideration. Under further consideration. That doesn't sound like a promise to me, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, this budget fails the residents of Sippy Downs and Palmview too, because it's another year when we're going to have to make do with a police station that's only open business hours during the week. More than 1,000 residents recently signed a petition and made their views very clearly known to this government that we require a 24 hours a day, 7-day-a-week police station in Sippy Downs. But the Miles government has chosen to ignore that petition, chosen to ignore their voice because they don't care. They don't care about the voice of the people of Sippy Downs. But, Deputy Speaker, I'll keep fighting for them. I'll keep fighting so that families in Sippy Downs and Palmview no longer have to live in fear. Deputy Speaker, this budget fails commuters sitting in traffic because of the mess that is the Sugar Road-Mooloolaba Road intersection. Despite the fact the government spent $2 million on planning, Labor have now cut the project completely. At least last year they kept it in there as a line item, but they've now cut it completely from Q-Trip and the budget. They've cut this project despite acknowledging that that intersection is, quote, dangerous, their words, not mine, dangerous, and, quote, congested, their words, not mine. That tells residents in Buderim everything they need to know about this decade-old Labor government. Labor does not care about the Sunshine Coast. But, Deputy Speaker, I and my LNP colleagues will not stop fighting for the Sunny Coast. But, Deputy Speaker, make no mistake, Labor will say and do anything to cling to power. The Treasurer is imploring voters to forget about the failings of his decades-old Miles Palaszczuk Labor government. The Labor slogan for this budget
point of order,
is doing what matters.
What is your point of order, member?
The member is referring to governments against the Speaker's orders. I ask that he withdraw and he refer to governments by their correct name as per the Speaker's rule.
I'll get some advice. Order. Order, members. Member for Buderim, can I please remind you to refer to government by their
I'll take your
appropriate
guidance,
times.
Deputy Speaker. Take your guidance. I'm sorry, I should have referred to this tired, third-term, insipid, arrogant, ineffective, decade-old Labor government. And I will continue to refer to them in that manner, Deputy Speaker. And, Deputy Speaker, if I was the member for Miller, I'd be ashamed of my government's record as well. I would be hiding from a record of failure and of incompetence.
Pause the clock. What is your point of order, member?
Clearly, I take personal offence at those ridiculous comments, and I ask that they be withdrawn.
Member for Budrum, the member for Miller takes personal offence. Do you withdraw?
I withdraw. Deputy Speaker, Labor's slogan for this budget is doing what matters. It is a slogan that is designed to distract from the failures of this tired third-term Labor state government. It's a carefully crafted strategy, Deputy Speaker, but it was delivered in a ham-fisted and amateurish manner from the Treasurer. To ask Queenslanders to ignore Labor's failings of the last 10 years is arrogant and disrespectful, but would we expect anything less from the Treasurer?
Members to my
By
right,
adopting
order.
this approach, Deputy Speaker, Labor are taking Queenslanders for mugs. The Courier Mail nailed it with their headline. Labor tries to hide Anastasia Palaszczuk. We'll pay you to forget the last decade.
Can I ask you to
and I'll
please sit
table
down?
that, Deputy Speaker. But I am confident, Deputy Speaker, that Queenslanders will see through Labor's pathetic attempts to distance itself from a decade of failure. To be frank, Deputy Speaker, this new Miles government rhetoric is embarrassing. A new Miles government where the now Premier was most recently the Deputy Premier who wasted $220 million on WellCare. And before that, he was the Minister for Health and Ambulance Services, whose failure pushed ambulance ramping to double what it was in 2015 and laid the groundwork for Queensland having the worst ambulance ramping in the country at 45.5%. Despite the fact that he's trying to run Miles from his record, Stephen Miles' fingerprints are everywhere on the failures of this decade-old Labor government. Deputy Speaker, let's contrast that with the plan delivered by the Leader of the Opposition today. A real plan to get more Queenslanders into their own home. A real plan to tackle the drivers pushing up.
Pause the clock. Member, can I please ask you to refer to members by their correct title?
Taking guidance, Deputy Speaker. A real plan to tackle the drivers pushing up the cost of living, many of which are within the control of this state government. A real plan to tackle the youth crime crisis with a commitment to remove detention as a last resort, restore consequences for action, implement early intervention programs that work, and a commitment to put the rights of victims before those of offenders. A real plan to tackle the worst ambulance ramping in the country so that Queenslanders can get the health care they need when they need it. A real plan to put Queensland's small and family businesses first. Deputy Speaker, as the Shadow Minister for Small and Family Business, fighting for the more than 480,000 Queensland small and family businesses is close to my heart. It's close to my heart because it's small and family businesses that are the backbone of every single community in Queensland, and supporting small and family businesses is at the core of who we are as the LNP. Despite the rhetoric, small and family businesses are always an afterthought for this third-term Labor government. Small business is hurting right now, but if you listen to the Minister for Small Business or the Premier, you'd think small business was killing it. Instead, what many are telling me is that it's slowly dying, Deputy Speaker. Inflation is up, regulation is up, but opportunity is down and people are losing hope, Deputy Speaker. Queensland has one of the highest rates of business liquidations in Australia, and it is largely to do with how difficult it is to run a business here. The cost of living crisis, a crisis of this government's making, is having a significant impact on every Queenslander. Bills are piling up for small business owners too. Power bills in particular are shocking. Behind wages, electricity has become the largest cost for small business, and it is forcing tough decisions. They're either increasing prices and driving away customers, they're laying off staff, or they're throwing in the towel and closing up shop for good. There is a business in Bundaberg that I recently met with has had their power bill double to $8,000 a month. Double to $8,000 a month. That is more than someone's wage. And rather than tackle the underlying issues pushing up electricity prices, Labor have instead decided to pay lip service to the issue and use short-term measures to distract from their failures. While any relief is welcome, $325 from this government for rebates for small businesses is barely a drop in the ocean. Numerous small business owners have said to me that that paltry support is an insult. The root cause of the problem must be solved in order to drive down prices for long-term improvement. It's been more than 3 years since Callide went offline. It's still not fixed. Queenslanders are sick of excuses. They need a government that is genuinely committed to delivering for all Queenslanders. Deputy Speaker, the youth crime crisis gripping the state is having a huge impact on small business too. The type of crime, and I hear those trying to pretend it's like the member for Nicklin, who's not in his seat, likes to deny the impact of youth crime on small businesses in Queensland. He likes to get on Facebook at night and abuse small businesses in his electorate, but he wants to pretend there's no problem with youth crime in Queensland. Well, if there is not a more out-of-touch member of parliament than the member from Nicholson, then I don't know who is. Here's a bloke who thinks it's best to abuse his constituents, not fight for them. He fights his constituents rather than fights for them. He's missed that and keep it in the middle. But anyway, Deputy Speaker, there is hope in Marty Hunt. Marty Hunt, who's going to come and actually give Nicholson hope. Deputy Speaker.
Members, order.
Deputy Speaker, it is not just running costs that are killing small businesses. Red tape and regulation are strangling them too. And as we've seen once again, improving the system is not a priority for this Labor government. We heard from the Queensland Business Chamber's efficient regulation report last year that 80% of businesses indicated that the time associated with meeting their regulatory compliance has increased. 85% of businesses said that the costs associated with red tape had increased, and the median cost of that compliance was $50,000. $50,000. It's one of the reasons that we've committed to restoring the Productivity Commission, and their first task will be tackling red tape and inefficiency in the building industry. The LNP knows how important it is to release the shackles on Queensland's small and family businesses. We'll make reducing red tape a priority. We'll strip back redundant legislation and streamline processes. It should be easy to do business with the government, but right now it is far from easy for small businesses in Queensland. The Putting Queensland Small and Family Business First policy, announced by the Leader of the Opposition today, makes it clear that a Christopher Foley LNP state government will put small and family business at the forefront of government tenders and procurement. We will streamline tender processes, we will implement smaller tender amounts, and we will improve the resources available to small and family business so that they can compete and get their fair share of Queensland government procurement opportunities. Alongside this, we'll implement a buy local small and family business procurement policy which will put local businesses first when government departments go to market in local areas. Too often, local businesses lose out because Brisbane-based big businesses, because of the policy, the Buy Queensland policy under this government. The case in point was the Cairns Convention Centre upgrade, where a big Brisbane-based company poached workers from local electrical firms when the work could have and should have been performed by Cairns small and family businesses. Even when big business subcontracts to small business, it's the small business that lose out, with the big businesses using their market power to squeeze margins on small business, leaving no margin in the deal for small businesses. We'll make fixing that a priority, Deputy Speaker. A Christopher Foley LNP government will implement a small and family business innovation pathway that will allow government to directly engage a Queensland small and family business on small short-term contracts up to $1 million for the purpose of proof of concept or outcome-based trials.
Member for Stafford, order.
That aims to try new ideas and access new providers who might be able to develop innovative programs and solutions to tackle some of the challenges currently facing Queensland. And Deputy Speaker, when small and family businesses are engaged by a future LNP state government, we'll make sure they're paid on time every time. Despite the fact that this state government says they'll pay small businesses in 20 days, they frequently fail to. Government should lead the way when it comes to paying small and family business suppliers on time. Every single quarter, Queensland Health misses their own small business payment requirement for about $15 million worth of invoices. I mentioned Queensland Health, Deputy Speaker, but I could mention every department, including the Department of Employment, Small Business Employment and Training, who also miss their own small business payment target. In contrast, an LNP Christopher Foley government will make sure that small and family businesses are paid within 5 business days, and for payments of less than $10,000, we'll implement a system where they can be paid immediately. On vocational training, this is another one-track budget that does little to tackle the chronic shortage of skilled workers that is currently choking Queensland's productivity. By their own measure, Labor have delivered 17,600 less tradies and skilled workers than they should have. 17,600 workers like chippies, plumbers and electricians that right now would have been so valuable in tackling the skilled worker shortage Queensland's facing. On nearly every single vocational training measure detailed in the STS, Labor have failed. And in the interest of time, I won't go through them, but I'd encourage members to have a look. Labor failure after Labor failure after Labor failure, And yet, the government come in here, Labor come in here, and they try to make a virtue of spending more while delivering less. But it's Queenslanders who pay the price. Strengthening vocational training means finding a path that supports both TAFE and independent providers to give Queenslanders the best opportunities. Queenslanders deserve choice and the best opportunities to get the skills they want for the jobs Queenslanders need. Labor wants to weaponise TAFE and vocational training for their own selfish political interests. But the truth is that all Queenslanders want to see a strong, sustainable and effective TAFE for the long term. TAFE, business, trainees and the LNP all want to make sure that more Queenslanders are enrolling in training and finishing their training. But right now, on that measure, Deputy Speaker, things are getting worse. The talk about commencements from the government is irrelevant if there is not a conversation about the number of people who complete their training. And right now, Queenslanders are not completing that training. Deputy Speaker, the time is against me, but it is very clear that this is a budget that's designed to win an election, not to fight for Queenslanders. And it is time for Queenslanders to show Labor the door in 24.
Deputy Speaker.